Well, this is playing. Let me go Fitori. So. Okay.
静寂と追憶の支配が不意打ちな涙になる特別と呼べるこの空からいつの間にか熱が消さった過去をつなぐ境界線目を塞ぐ日々に終わりにしよう繰り返す想いその瞬間熱くなる嬉しさの涙の向こうで仲間たちが笑うからささやかでちっぽけな心に咲いた花は誰かの気持ちで色をまとうかけがえのないいつもの場面嬉しさも悲しみも生きる証になる過ちも傷跡もそのまま受け止めよう癒されることじゃなくてただ明日を信じるなら
The fuck are these? What is that peep wake emo, bro? That shit looks terrible. Peep nap also looks terrible in the chat screen. Yeah, I don't know who thought those emotes look good. They look like ass, bro. Yeah, nah. All right. We saw this tip. Okay. Here we go. Oh shit, we just getting right into it. The phone suddenly rang. I woke up in a hurry. The clock read 9 p.m. Hold up. Okay.
しまった。定時連絡の時間を。
Holy shit, why is it so loud? I picked up the receiver.
赤坂様、外線からお電話が入っておりますが、おつなぎしてもよろしいでしょうか。ご同僚の加納様と申されております。
I knew it. I didn't call in, so they had phoned me.
すみません。つないでください。
かしこまりました。おつなぎしますので、一度受話器を置いてお待ちください。
After I put down the receiver for a few seconds, the phone began to ring again.
はい、もしもし。赤坂です。
赤坂くん、加納です。お疲れ様。定時連絡がなかったので、こちらからかけました。そちらの状況はどう？
Leaving the lecture for later, my senior coworker got straight to the point.
今日はひなみ沢村へ実島に行きました。観光客を装うことで 村長以下の何人かの刺繍同盟の要人との接触に成功。何も聞き出すには至りませんでしたが、好印象を得て明日以降へのつなぎを作ることができました。
そう。なかなか手際がいいね。赤坂くんのどこか初々しい感じがむしろ武器になったのかもしれないね。
The fuck you say about me, bitch?
まずは上守備ってところかな。
比較するほど経験がないので上守備かは分かりませんが、とりあえず今日のところは順調だと思います。
県警での情報や地元警察の公安での情報と照らしてどう？鬼ヶ淵刺繍同盟は白っぽい？
Still didn't know. I should have been able to say that immediately. I only had to say that, but for some reason I hesitated.
まだ調査中ですので、なんとも。
そう。なるべく早めにね。分かってると思うけど、今夜が終われば誘拐から丸4日が経過する。いつが時間切れという明白な区切りはないけど、時間の経過は確実に我々の状況を不利にしていく。それは分かってるよね。
ええ、分かっています。迅速に。だけれど、細心の注意で調査を続けます。
うん。くれぐれも気をつけてね。相手は暴力主義団体なんだから。油断すれば危険もあり得るからね。危険が迫ったらすぐに連絡を。その場合は地元公安に応援体制を入れられるようにするからね。
ありがとうございます。頑張ります。
他に赤坂くんの方から連絡はある？
Reported several bits of supplementary information, and at the very end I decided to
そ
ask.
ちらの調査の進展はどうですか？
うん。こっちもみんな頑張ってるけど、なかなかはかどらないよ。何しろ調べる団体が星の数だからね。だから君の方の団体も白だと分かったらすぐに帰郷して他の職員の応援に入ってもらいたいんだよ。室長は鬼ヶ淵も洗っとけって言ってるけど、俺は鬼ヶ淵なんかの反ダム住民団体なんかは今回の件全く無縁だと思ってるからね。職員一人を一団体調べさせるためだけに出張させるのはすごく痛いよ、ほんと。
At this point, he was just complaining. He was telling me to stop taking time enjoying my trip to finish up and get back quick.
なるべく早めにケリをつけるようにします。
うん、よろしくね。じゃあ他に何もなければ切るよ。
はい。特にありません。
As we were ending our call, he scolded me thoroughly for being late with my regular report. After that, I hung up the phone and sprawled out on the bed. Come to think of it, I hadn't heard anything from Oishi. He was supposed to contact me about a time and place to meet with the informant tonight. I thought about getting angry with Oishi in retaliation for being scolded for forgetting my daily report. Come to think of it, though, Oishi didn't really say anything other than that he was going to call tonight. Waiting for a phone call when you didn't know what time it was going to come was in itself rather difficult. Just when I thought that, the phone rang. I picked up the receiver in a hurry.
もしもし。
これはびっくりしました。赤坂さん、あなた受話器取るの早いですね。警官辞めても大企業の営業で十分飯が食えますよ。
You saw?
まだ警官辞めた後のことなんか考えたこともありません。
そこまで過剰に反応されると面白いな。しかしいけないな。因果な商売ですし、今から考えても遅くないですよ。
What the fuck?
遠慮いたしますので。
Oishi really do be a
本題に
freak.
入ってください、大石さん。
そうですか。それは残念です。じゃあ老後の話は次の機会にでも。では本題に。
Many of the executives in the Onigafuchi Guardians had a lot of sway in the neighboring regions. Even in Okinomiya, there were a lot of people with relations in the village. That's why meeting in Shishibone Market District, far from Okinomiya, was a matter of course.
Akasakaさん、こっちこっち。
Do you ever wear anything else, Oishi?
ちょっと迷いましたが、 北口からの方が遠回りだけど道は分かりやすかったかもしれませんね。
いえ、遅れて申し訳ありませんでした。
夕飯はもう食べちゃいました？
ええ、済ませてあります。
じゃあお酒の飲めるお店に行きましょうか。洋酒派？日本酒派？女の子のいる店といない店はどっちがいいですかね？
With or without women?
お構いなく。勤務中は飲みませんので。
Hearing that, the man that Oishi had brought along bent backwards as he guffawed, clapping Oishi on the shoulder.
ねえ、初々しい人でしょ。その分ちょっぴりサービスしてあげてくださいよ。あのお金は全部彼のお財布から出てるんですからね。
The man that Oishi had brought seemed almost like a ticket scalper or a bookie. Even his appearance was dubious. The informant grinned deviously. Sato.
お前旦那にいくら渡した？だいぶ途中でつまみ食いされてんぞ。
大石氏への仲介手数料も含めています
Was
から。
that
それも含んだ上です。
previous? Was that her adopted dad's name? I don't remember if we ever got his name. Seemed that the informant had expected a more extravagant reaction on my part. When I responded matter-of-factly, he realized that I was an entirely different type of person than he was. But rather than putting a distance between us, it seemed that I had piqued his interest.
だから言ったでしょ。真面目な人なんです。でもね、赤坂さん。私たちのような職種の人間は豊富な社会経験がとても武器になるんですよ。
女の子がいて、
Since
お
last time
酒
was
が
3
飲め
weeks
るお
ago, I
店での
forgot
経
the
験
name.
がどう
Bro,
武
last
器
time
に
we
なる
played
かと言い
Higurashi
ま
was
す
not 3 weeks ago, you donkey. The informant, unable to contain himself, clutched at his stomach as he guffawed, heedless of the people watching.
もう赤坂さんはいちいち察しがいいな。よっ、さすが高学歴。
大石さん、あなたどこかで飲んできましたね。酔っ払ってます。
オフタイムに飲んで何が悪いんですか？あなたは勤務中でも私はオフ。オフ。
Oishi, who was the sort that fool around to begin with, was in such a good mood I couldn't figure out a way to deal with him. Completely different than me, who had come worried about getting every bit of information I could. Oishi-san, after taking so much money, you were supposed to give me information worth at least as much. I thought this, but then realized that I was getting my information from the informant, so it didn't matter how drunk Oishi was. It was nothing I could complain about, but I still felt slightly riled up. Oishi and his informant, it was no doubt a fake name, but he introduced himself as Sato. Okay. Led the way deeper and deeper into the back streets of the market district. Even though the market was bustling a couple of turns off the main street and you were in a desolate alleyway. Oishi started climbing a set of stairs on the side of a seedy building. There wasn't any sort of signage, so I couldn't tell if the place was open or if it was even a store at all.
怪しい店じゃありませんよ。
Those words coming from Oishi's mouth had absolutely no credibility. Beyond the door was thankfully a typical mahjong parlor. I was relieved that it wasn't the sort of suspicious place I had to be on my guard about. Oh shit, we've seen this place
はい
before.
いらっしゃい。あら、大石さん、お久しぶり。こっち入ります？すぐ開きますよ。
いいえ。今日はセットですからいいです。お、待たせましたね。
Mahjong is a game played with 4 people. It seems that a middle-aged man who was going to be our 4th had already arrived and was waiting for us.
遅えぞクラウド。俺はもう消えろと思ってたんだから。
Oishi made an excuse for why he had taken so long. Eventually realizing that I was a new face, the other man grew interested.
彼は赤坂さん。東京からはるばる出張されてきた 将来有望な新人さんです。
坊主、お前麻雀はできんのか？
まあ学生時代にそこそこに。
Sato and the old man cackled in unison. Their plot to sucker me out of my money was painfully obvious.
緊張続きの出張で疲れておいでだろうと思いましてね。一つ今夜は心の選択でもして差し上げましょうかと思いまして。
今さら野暮なことを聞きますが、私たち警察官ですよね。
まあそれはいい子なしで。なに、実際にはかけるわけじゃありませんよ。この後いいお店に遊びに行くときに誰が全員分を払うのか決めるだけですって。遊
びに行く？どんな店に遊びに行くんですか？
Without reservations, the three of them started suggesting places like cabarets, high-class clubs, and even brothels. At the very least, they were the type of places that you couldn't go to with money that was just for funsies.
私のお金は先日大石さんに根こそぎ預けて支払いは不可能ですし。
じゃあ坊主が勝てばいいじゃねえかよ。おめえが勝ったらこの雀荘の支払いはなしで、クラウドに仕事の話でも何でもすればいい。
Oh my god, bro. I can't believe we're doing club activities with adults. No matter what happened, it seemed like they were intent on playing mahjong for free. I would have to fasten my resolve a bit. If I was going to be underestimated like this forever, it was going to get in the way of my
わ
work.
かりました。では少しだけお付き合いします。私が勝ったらアフターの遊びは一切なしですぐに仕事の話に入ってもらいますからね。
いいですとも。
俺が勝ったらフラワーのブルーマーメイドに直行だからね。
おやっさんも好きだな。私はもちろん馴染みの店をはしごしまくりですよ。あっけみちゃん。佐藤さんはどうします？
私は静かに飲めるお店でいいですよ。
静かにバニーさんとでしょ。この間飲みに行った時、あんたバニーさんの尻尾を引っこ抜いちゃったでしょ。
What the fuck?
あれ結局弁償だったの？
マスターに縫製代とか言われて一本ドンペリ開けられたな。
What a lively table this was. I could tell the other customers were glaring at us while we were loudly continued our crude conversation. Speaking of which, the fact that they assumed I was the same was a bit disheartening. Oishi had taken all the money I brought, so everything I had left was out of my own pocket. In addition, there wasn't that much left of that either. If I kept on hanging around him like this, through his goading, my wallet would disappear into the night. I had to somehow win and return the conversation to my job. But these people, no matter how you looked at it, were pretty good. Sorry, Yuki. Sorry, Yuki. Oh, looks like their future daughter's gonna not go to college.
そんじゃこれでリーチッと。
Well, the old man and Sato-san probably won't fall for this silly Richie. I wonder if Akasaka-kun will spit out what I need to move.
クラウドのリーチなんざどうせこの辺だろ。この辺なら通るだろ。それ
I don't really know mahjong, so I don't really know what they're talking about. The old man's pretty good. He's quietly trying to use one of my safe tiles to complete his hand, isn't he? Seems that Akasaka-kun has at least learned the ropes when it comes to guarding against someone's Richi. But that will be his
どうした
downfall.
坊主。サクッと切らねえかい。よくわからなかったらクラウドと同じもんを切ってりゃ安全だぞ。
Oh, Akasaka-kun's... So I think we're in Oishi's POV now, right? Really fretting over this one. It was glaringly obvious that he had a safe tile to discard, but he didn't want to throw it away because it would move him farther from completing his hand. They're so nice when they're young and innocent. What the fuck? Come on, hurry up and throw out the kicker. If he gave me the winning tile, we'd be heading to an establishment where I could do with all sorts of licking and stuff. Oh, she's a freak! If he gives the old man his winning tile, we'd be headed straight to the place with maids and bloomers.
これは通りますか？
He looked up as he hesitantly threw out a tile that was, oh, too
おい
bad.
おい、危ねえパイだぞ。クラウド、通るのか。
いい、通りますよ。
Seems this time you were lucky, but as long as the round kept going, I could still win off this draw. Oof, oof, oof. But after that, Akasaka-kun managed to luckily avoid throwing any bad tiles, and somehow the round managed to end without anybody completing a hand.
天敗。
同点。
Sato-san had keenly anticipated that two players were in Riichi and had decided to play it safe. What a cool-headed way of playing. Now let's see what kind of hand did Akasaka-kun have. When the round ends with nobody winning in mahjong, anybody in Tenpai has to show their hand. But if you're not in Tenpai, you have no obligation to reveal it. Your average beginner would normally show their hand even if they weren't in Tenpai and start a commotion about how if this tile or that tile came, they would be in Tenpai. But he did it. Being stingy?
どうだって坊主。ちょっと見せてみ。
Hato-san reached over to flip the hand that Akasaka-kun had casually placed face down.
なんじゃこりゃ。
He was nowhere near Tenpai. Was Akasaka-kun totally bad at this after all? Right then, as the old man compared the tiles to Akasaka-kun's hand to the discard pool, a puzzled expression crossed his face.
おめえ、この辺りで張っとるだろ。どうして切った？
マンズの高いあたりが急に高騰しましたので抑えました。大石さんのリーチに対して安全性が高まったのにです。筋でさばけば無難なのにわざわざ抑えた方がいる。
おう、クラウドの天敗など鼻から論外。っていうわけか？
Oh shit, Akasaka's an expert.
相当高度な引っ掛けでなければ私の宝珠を期待したぬるめの手かと思って。それよりもダマで張ったあなたの方がとりあえずは問題でした。
いつ天敗したのに気づいた？
この辺りですか。ノンタイムで4連続で切ってますよね。初めは食い替えかと思いましたが私をチラチラ見ていたので期待しているんだと気づきました。
Akasaka-kun, you.
赤坂さん、あんた麻雀始めてどのくらい？
Inside this mother's belly.
高校から大学くらいまでの
Nope,
間し
never
かやっ
mind.
てい
These
ま
old
せん
people
よ。
just suck.
さあ続けましょう。佐藤さんはテンパイしなかったから流れて次は私ですね。お
Yeah, I
や
have no clue anything about mahjong either, so seems like Akasaka-kun is really aware of how the game flows. We thought we were going to eat him alive, but it looks like this isn't going to be so easy.
大石さん想図が濃すいですね。回しますか？
この坊主。クラウド、降りるな。
あと3つ。いい牌が来ればな。佐藤さんはうまくいきそうです。
くそ。食いたんで引きずり下ろすか。Gだ。
C ですか。じゃあすみません。それポンです。
Bon. Whoa, now going to call three of a kind after he declared a straight, trying to override and
坊
interfere.
主、おめえ離れしとるな。
まさか私が生まれる前から打ってるような方々とは比べようもないですよ。あ、それです。どうも。トイトイ赤赤7さん。
Oh.
親ですからね。ちょっぴり高いですよ。
Ooh.
赤坂さんやるな。これは我々も本気を出さないと。ねえ。
本気のついでに展望も出してもらいましょうかね。私は眠いんで手っ取り早く終わらせます。
Akasaka-kun? This is somehow unreal. Nahahahaha. Before I could realize it, there was an ominous cold air emitting from beneath Akasaka-kun's feet.
ぬるいですね。マンズのリャンウーパーが笑ってませんか？
ちくしょう。坊主てめえ。クラウド、お前差し込め。坊主の親、とっとと下ろすぞ。
悔しいですが、どうやらそうした方が賢明なようですね。
出た。ローだ。汎用ドラ1。
One Dora to Explorer? What does that
すみ
mean?
ませんね。頭っぱなです。のピンフ。
頭っぱねだ小僧のくせに。
小僧。小僧が相手だと
Oh!
バカバカしくて手を緩むってわけで。じゃああんた。その小僧
Ooh,
に
that's classic online gaming banter.
面白いな。
Someone calls you a shitter, but then you say, oh, if I'm a shitter and you just lost to a shitter, then what are you?
あんたら連中は決まって小僧だ坊主だって言うよ。
Oh, whoa, okay, Akasaka. I didn't know this. Okay, damn.
赤坂くんですよね。
Oh no, bro's been possessed by Oyashiro-sama.
なんでかムードが変わりまくりなんですがね。
私をかもって今晩はいいお酒を飲むおつもりだったんでしょうが、どうやら皆さんの当ては外れそうです。単品3色赤1ドラ1。
Oh my god.
張ってやがったか。
だからあんたぬるいよ。
Damn! Akasaka?
いくらダマだからってこんなにぬるい三面なんだから読んでくれなくっちゃ。
Akasaka-kun chuckled as he rested his chin in his hands. That pose was so fitting, it was almost scary.
おいクラウド話がちげえぞ。初々しいカモがネギ。
いや誰でしょうね。
おいさん、まずいよ。このままじゃ負けるよ、マジで。
Akasaka-kun, for you to make me get serious. Looks like you really want to be milked dry. Why does he talk like this, bro?
ポンポン。気前がいいですね。もう一回ポンです。
Akasaka-kun was almost singing at this point. The tiles he had open were all pin tiles. Can't be serious. Are you really going for the flush?
坊主、正気か。4つも晒したらおめっぱいが1つだけじゃね。
そうですね。知ってます？短期待ちって一番読まれにくいらしいですよ。
バカかてめえ。そこまで染めて晒しといて今更出ると思うんじゃねえ。
読めてますよ赤坂さん。それ均一でも本一でもないんでしょう。4つポンした時点でトイトイは成立してますからね。あんた今絶好の単独トップ。こいつは均一と見せかけでトイトイで食おうという挑発手でしょう。
そう思うならピンズ切ってみ。大石さんの牌の左5つ、さっきから切り損ねてるピンズですよね。それを端から順に切ってみたらいいんじゃないですか。
You must be joking. Is he a mahjong god? If not, he had to be the main character of a manga or something. At that moment, the old man sent me a sign under the table. The message was simple and clear.
やれ叩き潰せ。
こんな若い子に様は好きじゃないんですがね。
Ooh.
あうここまで舐められて今さら引けるか。
You gonna cheat?
もう知りませんよ。ではどうぞ。
行くぞ坊主。リーチだ。オープンで行くぞ。ピンズの一数値待ちだ。
Most likely, the tile that Akasaka-kun was waiting for was one of those tiles. With this, Akasaka-kun was no longer capable of winning the hand. When I drew from the wall, I switched out the tile that Akasaka-kun would draw. The tile that I put in was the one pin, one of the tiles that the old man was waiting on. Akasaka-kun discarded it a little while ago, so there was no threat of it being the one he needed.
おい、坊主の番だぜ。
I knew he was troubled that the tile he drew was the one pin. Of course, he couldn't
坊
discard it.
主分かってると思うがオープンリーチに振り込んだら100万払いだぜ。
言われるまでもありませんよ。
An honor tile? Phew, ain't that something? There's only one north wind tile left, isn't there? You were counting on a really rough wait, weren't you? But with this, Akasaka-kun's fate was decided.
カズ命拾いしたな。だが手配は1名だ。逃げきれなくなることもあるんじゃねえのか。
やっぱりそういうことか。
Akasaka-kun glared at the old man with a discerning eye. This guy had pretty good instincts. Did he figure out we were
や
cheating?
めましょうよやっさん。赤坂君の方が2、3枚は上手です。
バル、ここまで来てやめられるか。次行け、掴ませちまえ。
The next tile Akasaka-kun would draw was a 7-pin. With that, it would be settled. No matter which one he discarded, he'd play right into the old man's hand. An unavoidable full payout. When I drew my tile, I sneakily swapped Akasaka's crash. What? Akasaka-kun suddenly sneezed, collapsing the wall of tiles in front of him.
おいおい、な。
すみません。ついくしゃみをした拍子に山を崩しちゃって、バップ払いですね。上だから4000オールですか？それとも、バップは積み棒に？
Unable to hold back, I guffawed. Akasaka-kun, knowing he was going to be cornered a second time and unable to escape, he took the drastic measure of knocking over his own
や
wall.
るなあ、坊主。100万払いをそういう手で防ぐとはな。ガッハハハ。
大石さんも、そんな見え見えの積み込みは勘弁してください。これが馬場なら、今ので卓をひっくり返してたところですよ。
いえいえいえいえいえいえ。すみませんすみません。あなたを侮っていましたよ。あなたどうしてお強いじゃないですか。
正直に話さんかい。若い頃はだいぶ慣らしたんだろ。
早稲田高田の馬場あたりでだいぶ遊ばせてもらいました。ちょっと勝ちまくりすぎて馴染みの店に出禁を食らいまして、
The fuck?
今の家内にだいぶ怒られて足を洗ったんです。
勝ちまくりすぎて？あんた当時はどのくらいの勝率でやってたの？
メンツにもよりましたが、歌舞伎町あたりで打つときはほぼ負けなしでした。
Kabukicho?
特に相手があれ系の人の時は
Oh
命
shit.
かかってましたからね。
He's playing the fucking Yakuza, bro. What kind of stakes were those? Did you have Yakuza at your table? Or pro baseball
な
players?
んだな、クラウド。このタクは。お前どっからこんなプロ雀士みたいなの引っ張ってきたんだ。もうやめだやめ。ああもう坊主降参降参。
ありがとうございます。光栄です。
いやいや。しかし赤坂さん、あんた打つと性格変わるね。なんで就職なんかしたの？あんたならフリーで十分に飯食っていけるじゃない。
プロ雀士には腕と月の両方が必要なんですよ。私には後者がありませんでしたから。
好きなんてその時の運不運だろ。あんたほどの腕があれば十分にいけると思うがな。
波の月じゃダメなんですよ。関したら3回に1回くらいはそのままカンドラが4つ乗ってここぞという時に狙ってリンシャンが引ける。そのくらいじゃないと。
赤坂君、そんなのが頻繁にできたらそれはもう超能力者ですよ。
いえ、イカ様でも超能力でもなく、そのくらいの打ち手は結構いるんですよ。新宿で知り合った泣くたびにドラが乗りまくる雀士なんか鬼のように強かったですし、横浜で打ったプロなんかは当たり前のように一発で引き当ててましたからね。私にはああいう月がないんです。
What type of folks were those? They weren't named Ryu or Satoshi by any chance.
というわけで総合トップは私でよろしいですね。
へいへいへい、乾杯でございます。
負けた負けた。久しぶりに大負けだ。
しかし打ってる時の坊主気合入ってたな。結構怖かったぜ。
よく言われます。自分ではそんなに目つき変えてるつもりはないんですがね。そんなに怖い目になってましたか？
The three of us nodded emphatically in agreement. So that was Akasaka-kun, the mahjong prodigy. Before he goes home from his assignment, maybe I could have him go play at a high stakes table in my place. It's not good to get greedy.
じゃあ仕方ないや。約束です。夜の学習会はこれでお開きにしましょう。申し訳ありませんね、おやっさん。今夜はこれでお開きです。
しゃあねえな。冷えて寝るわ。体力つけんと体が持たん。
お仕事が大変なんですか？
ああ、おやっさんはひなみ沢ダムの第一工区の監督さんなんです。住民とは連日小競り合いをしてますからね。しんどい商売ですよ。
来年あたり第二工区も任されちまうかもしれねえな。黒田さん、血圧上がりまくりって聞いたしよ。身が持たねえや。
おやっさんなら大丈夫でしょう。あなた、見た目よりも面の皮厚めですしね。
俺だって仏じゃねえからな。腹渡にいくり返る時あるぞ。特に園崎のあの小娘は我慢がならん。あいつの顔面いつか簡単には治らんくらいに歪ませたろって思ってる。
まあまあまあ。でも給料はいいんでしょ？かなり破格の給金だって聞きましたよ。
おっとりめえだ。あんなに世知辛い職場で給料が安かったら誰も残らんよ。あ、クラウド。警察はいつになったら村の人間全部追っ払ってくれるんだ。国から立ち退き命令とか出てるんだろ？
ねえ、どうなってるんでしょうね。
The old man who identified himself as a foreman of the Hinamizawa Dam spewed a few complaints until he felt better about it, then left quietly.
じゃ、行きましょう。あとは佐藤さんに任せますかね。
大石さんは帰られるんですか？
私が一緒でもお邪魔しちゃうだけでしょ。それに佐藤さんの仕事を買ったのはあなたです。私は対価を払ってませんからね。
Oishi-san was kind of sketchy, but he was strangely conscientious about some things. I felt quite a bit of gap between myself and Oishi's generation from that part of him I didn't comprehend.
じゃあ坊主、いや、ジャンシ様にもう坊主なんて言えねえな。赤坂くんでよかったっけ？
はい。
じゃあ赤坂くん、行こうか。
では赤坂さん、また何か困ったことがあったらいつでも頼りに来てくださいね。
大石さんにお支払いできるような対価はもう持ってませんよ。
んじゃ、今度の勝負で少し手加減してもらえたらチャラにしますよ。
Oishi, seemingly still not having had his fills of playing around, but without overstaying his welcome, disappeared into the night. Okay. You just need to watch the Toburo's new vid about Enfield. Is it the one where he crashed out? I just watched the crash out and then skipped the rest because I didn't really care. Informant named Sato-san had me get into his car before he set off. He favored narrow roads and made numerous short left turns.
左折法による尾行確認ですか？
詳しいな。
Checking to see if we were being tailed by making left turns was a rather classic technique. As a single pursuer, you could confirm it that way. But if you were being tailed as a team, this archaic method wouldn't let you shake them. Of course, doing it anyway was better than not.
赤坂くんが何者かは旦那から何も聞いてないんだが、やっぱり警察関係かい？尾行確認に詳しいなんて、あとは探偵者くらいしか思いつかねえね。
言わなければならないものでないなら拒否したい質問ですね。
やれやれ。麻雀やってからすっかり雰囲気が大人びちまったな。会った時のあのおどおどしたあんたはどこ行っちゃったんだよ。
I smiled wryly. Looking back now, I had to be a little grateful for being made to play mahjong. Thanks to that, I was able to relieve some tension. Even Sato-san confirming that there were no cars following us. Eventually, Sato-san confirming that there were no cars following us slipped outside the city. We were on a pitch-black country road, unable to see anything besides the lights outside. The only thing I was able to hear were the hum of the car's air conditioning and the chirping of insects and frogs.
旦那からひなみ沢村については多少のことは聞いてんだろ？
御三家という旧家による支配や現在は園崎家が一党独裁をしているとかそういう。
そこまで知ってるならくだらない前置きは省略していいな。
では犬飼大臣の孫の誘拐に鬼ヶ淵氏主導名が関与しているか否かを。
Sato-san checked the rear view mirror one more time to confirm there wasn't anybody behind us before speaking.
昨夜園崎本家で親族会議が開かれたそうだ。親族会議ってのは旦那から聞いてるか？
いえ。
普通に親族会議って言ったらまあ親戚が集まってお茶でも飲むようなもんだよな。だが園崎本家の親族会議っていうのはそんなのんびりしたものってわけが違う。
Family council held by the Sonozaki main house. That would be a meeting between those who truly controlled Hinamizawa village. That they wouldn't be talking about private family matters. It would be about the village as a whole. About organizing activities against the dam project. Among other things, everything would be decided there. In reality, they were deciding the fate of the village. At the head of the meeting was Oryu Sonozaki, more or less called Emperor Sonozaki. As the ultimate decision maker of the clan, she was to be feared and respected. Infirm with old age, she was unable to stand on her own, but her words carried enough weight to sway the fate of the village. It seemed that lately she had grown weak, and on days where she wasn't feeling well, remained bedridden. Family councils that occurred while she wasn't feeling well took place with her on the floor. In the middle of a dignified Japanese-style room, still in a futon, only the upper half of her body sitting upright, a stern look on her face, that was Oryu Sonozaki. Sitting next to her was her heir, Mion Sonozaki. She was still young. No, young wasn't quite the word. She was a girl who remained childish. Her role was to merely sit beside Oryu Sonozaki, sometimes responding to her requests. However, she was the only one deemed worthy to succeed Oryu. She had the same hawkish eyes, enough to give pause to anybody who so much as looked at them. Much was expected of her in the future, as granddaughter of the Sonozaki leader. And also on either side of her sat several other important members of the remaining three families, the Kimiyoshi family and the Furude family. What's on the list for the Kimiyoshi family was of course the mayor of Hinamizawa village, Kichiro Kimiyoshi. And lined up beside him were several more of his direct relatives. Bald. Opposite to them sat the other of the three families, the Furude family. The Furude family was only comprised of the family of the Shinto priest, so the only ones sitting there were said priest, his wife, and their daughter Rika. Rika was doted on by many of the older folks in the village, and it seemed that Oryu was no exception. While the stress from just attending a family council was said to be enough to shorten your lifespan by 3 days, it seemed like Rika was the only one exempt from that. No matter how charged the atmosphere was around her, she paid it no mind, instead humming along as she doodled in a sketchbook. In fact, the night before, lying on her stomach while humming and doodling, she nonchalantly tucked her legs into Oryu's futon like it was kotatsu. All this was the three families, and all around the room, lined row upon row, were relatives of the Sonozaki family. The only ones who were afforded cushions to sit on were direct relatives. The others were left to sit in a seiza position directly on the tatami mats. With Empress Sonozaki enshrined at their center, they were almost like a giant snake coiled around the room. It was decided that everybody would sit in order of their rank. The number of people from the Sonozaki family was overwhelming. The fact that the Sonozaki family held so many seats at a meeting where everything pertaining to the village was decided made determining where the balance of power was held in the three families as clear as day. The number of members in attendance from each of the families directly reflected how much influence they had in ruling Hinamizawa.
その会議で 何が話されたんですか？
Sato-san, after remaining silent for a while, quietly began to speak.
マスコミ関係に支払ってる謝礼金の額が大きいんじゃないかい？
Breaking the long moment of silence was the head of the Kimiyoshi family, Kichiro Kimiyoshi. How does the Sato guy know all this? The Onigafuchi Guardians wasn't a business. They were nothing more than a private organization pushing for cancellation of the Hinamizawa Dam project with no reliable source of income. Fundraising had always been a problem. When they first started operating, they had managed to collect a sizable amount of funds through donations, but as the conflict dragged on, that amount was steadily declining.
石を投げるだけが全ての時代じゃないさ。マスコミの力も侮れないのは重々承知しているし、今後もその力を借りたいのは同じさ。
The expression of the people related to the Sonozaki family were sullen, as the one who suggested that they should borrow that power was the family head, Oryu Sonozaki. The battle wasn't just about force of arms. In this civilized age, there were civilized methods of fighting. Oryu suggested a strategy incorporating the mass media. Oryu's foresight was spot on, and the effects of that plan, while at first unclear, slowly began to manifest. If the physical confrontation at the construction site was meant to delay progress on the dam by even one day, then the propaganda war using the media was aimed at attacking the dam project itself. At first, there were those who had doubts about that strategy, but there was nobody now who called those results into question. But in order to maintain those media ties, a colossal amount of money was required. As long as the amount of funds they had was abundant, things would turn out fine. It couldn't be argued that it was a massive expense, but the results spoke for themselves. But when the conflict continued to drag on, the circumstances had changed. The head of the Sonozaki family, no, the one who sat at the pinnacle of the Hinamizawa three families, Oryu, had suggested the idea herself, so it was already untouchable and continued to be allowed to drain from the budget. Nobody acknowledged that it should be allowed, but nobody could say anything. That was the price of dealing with the mass media.
どう思う？お嬢さん。
The only person who could object to a plan proposed by the head of the Sonozaki household herself was probably Mayor Kimiyoshi. Oryu, with a hard-to-define expression on her face as if she had severed herself from the fetters of mortal emotion, simply listened quietly to Kimiyoshi's words. But really, it was hard to tell if she was quietly listening or didn't even have the intention of listening at
去
all.
年機関士の値上げの理解を得るのにも随分苦労したじゃない。一度だけってことで理解を得て、また今年もってわけにはいかないよ。ねえ、古手さん。
The mayor looked to the priest and his wife from the Frude family for affirmation. The priest gave a vague expression, avoiding a prompt response. But his wife gave her answer without a second
そう
thought.
ですね。
Oh, Rika's mom.
機関士代は特に貧しい家には大きな負担になっています。みんな自分たちの村のためだからと耐えていますが、これ以上の値上げはやめた方がいいでしょうね。
The bulletin was, as its name implied, a bulletin published by the Onigafuchi Guardians. It outlined the alliance's activities, ideals, and resolve, but you couldn't deny the contents were rather piecemeal. That bulletin's main goal wasn't to inform people, but rather was something to sell to businesses and people living in the village or connected to it, and using those sales to collect funds. In other words, it had become something of a tax. Of course, it didn't have to be said that this was one of the main sources of income for the Onigafuchi Guardians. Originally, purchase was supposed to be voluntary, but in Hinamizawa it has silently become the opposite. In the neighboring towns as well, it seemed that many businesses were buying copies just to avoid butting heads with the alliance. The priest whispered to his wife to not say anything unnecessary, but was struck down decidedly with a cold glare. Cowering from that glare, the priest shut his mouth. Damn. Rika's mom kind of a girl boss. The priest's wife always held the power in their relationship. That was because she was the one who carried the Frude bloodline. Oh, okay, so she's the actual Frude. The husband is just okay. He was nothing more than somebody who adopted the name just to join the three families. Ooh, he's a fucking fraud. Frauder Day. He should have been able to find a spot fairly high up in the hierarchy of things, but the lack of authority in his voice meant that he had still not gained any favor. Casting a backwards glance at her rather disparate parents, Rika continued to doodle whimsically without paying them any mind. Signaled by a look from Oryu, Mion brought her ear closer to her grandmother. There, something was said to her in a quiet voice. After responding with a couple questions with a nod from Oryu, Mion looked around the room and conveyed her grandmother's words.
機関士の値上げもやむを得ません。
Kimiyoshi made a face like he had just bit into something unpleasant, but that expression quickly disappeared like it had never happened at all.
だけどミオンちゃん、君だって分かってると思うけど、機関士の負担は決して軽いものじゃない。ひなみ沢の全ての人間にかかる重みなんだ。あんまり負担をかけすぎれば内部から崩れることだって。
内部から崩れるのは誰ですか？
どれって別にそういう意味。
最初に崩れるのは誰かと聞いています。
Damn, bro. Okay, Mion. Being cross-examined by a girl who still had fragments of childishness remaining within her, the words struck Kimiyoshi's throat as he sunk into silence. Mion repeated her question once more, looking around the crowded room. Everybody refrained making eye contact to avoid being pierced by her gaze. The words she had spoken were unarguably said in proxy for Oryu. That's why when Mion spoke them, they carried the same weight. But the look in her eyes was different. Like Oryu's, they had a hawkish gaze strong enough that anybody looking upon them would freeze in their tracks and yield. But that gaze was without question one that belonged to Mion herself. As Mion would eventually inherit everything from Oryu, the day when she would stand up as a young and capable leader in her own right would come. Nobody wanted to believe otherwise for even a minute. That's why nobody even thought of Mion as just some sort of little kid.
Kimiyoshi-san, 機関士の値上げごときでは誰の決意も崩れませんよ。
Kimiyoshi, while grumbling a little bit, made a gesture as if to say he had no objection.
マスコミ関係への出費は継続とします。その出費がさらに圧迫となるようなら機関士の値上げもやむを得ない。
Mion had rendered her judgment. Everybody bowed their heads silently, listening to her words.
園崎家当主代行園崎ミオンです。我が名において以上決定し、異議はこれを認めず、抵抗ある場合は実力をもって排除します。
Remove by force. Formal decree was read aloud, indicating her judgment. There would be no retrial. But there was a certain authority behind those words that even a courthouse couldn't compare to. If she was a judge, she would have banged her gavel, signaling that the matter was settled. Mion pulled out a large bell from inside her clothes and rang it. What? It's the same fucking bell sound. Everybody present could only prostrate themselves before the harsh sound of the bell.
なんとも大時代的な親族会議ですね。
あんたみたいな若いもんにはちょっと信じられないだろうけどね。こういう古い土地にはこんなのが未だ根強く残ってるもんさ。
It was exactly as Oishi had said. The old system of the three families had vanished, and now the Sonozaki family was running things by themselves. On top of that, their rule was borderline despotic.
会議はそれで終わりですか？
いや、まだ続く。先を続けるよ。
Okay. Eventually, after the ringing of the bell ceased, there was a deafening silence. Within all of that, a lone man shuffled closer to Mion and whispered something in her ear. Mion asked several questions quietly in response. When she was satisfied, she motioned for the man to leave. The man who talked to Mion was a member of the gang that her father was the leader of. The organization had the entire area of Shishibone City under its control, so it was quite well known even here. Of course, this is talking about the criminal underworld, so it's not like just anybody would know, but just showing a patch with the gang symbol on it was enough to resolve any disputes in the neighborhood. Mion's biological father to Oryu was her daughter's husband. power of that man's gang was the driving force that controlled the dark underbelly of the Onigabuchi Guardians. Until that man, from his position as the next in line to control the three families, continued to coerce everybody around him with his unconventional presence. Mion exchanged a look with her father. Was it okay for her to tell what she just heard directly to Oryu? It looked like she was asking him that question. Her father gently but firmly nodded as response. Mion also nodded, then sidled up to Oryu and informed her of something. Eventually, Mion finished conveying her message, separated herself from Oryu, and fixed her posture, waiting for Oryu to signal her response. It wasn't often that Oryu showed any emotion. That's why when she started to laugh quietly, a vague sense of uneasiness crept over everybody in the room.
そら、難儀なこともあったものよの。
Oryu was laughing so happily that Kimiyoshi had to hesitantly ask.
どうしたんだい、お嬢さん。
我らにとって土地が母なら、この度のダムの騒ぎは、母の命を脅かされる騒ぎっちゅうことだろうな。
Kimiyoshi, unable to comprehend the meaning of her words, looked confused. Oryu, with a wide grin on her face, turned towards everybody and addressed them in a clarion voice.
ダムの親玉の大臣がの、孫さらわれちまって、こんれでおあいこだの。
バカな。
Information on the kidnapping of Minister Inukai's grandson shouldn't have leaked from anywhere. How did they know? Even we didn't know much about the kidnapping incident. Exactly how did an antiquated household so far from Tokyo come to know of it? Well, because they're behind it. Fucking, come on. It was a tranquil place, but I couldn't help but have an uneasy feeling about Hinamizawa village. At some point, I had mentally filled this place away as unrelated to the incident at hand. That mental paperwork had just blown away in the wind.
どうして鬼ヶ淵主導名が知っているんだ。
Sato-san, unable to come up with an answer, fell into
すみま
silence.
せん。続きをお願いします。
なあ。
犬飼建設大臣のお孫さんがさらわれた。お嬢さん、それは本当かい。
That major of an incident was nowhere to be seen in the newspapers or on TV, but in Hinamizawa there was nothing strange about Oryu knowing something that the rest of the world didn't.
我らの痛みは母を失う痛みじゃの。それに値するとは思わんが、まあ少しは答えるといいんじゃがの。なあ。
The last question wasn't addressed to anybody in particular. It was as if she was looking for a consensus.
だが、土地と人様の子供ではわけが違う。隠すのは構わんが、怪我だけはさせたくないの。こにゃ何の罪もね、大事にしたれな。
それはつまり鬼
No
ヶ淵
shit,
主導名
Akasaka,
が
come on.
必ずしもそうとは言えねえな。
どうして当主であるお涼がこれほどまではっきりと誘拐した孫の処遇について指示を出しているのに。
兄さん、これはね、園崎家のいつものことなんだよ。
いつものこと？それはどういう意味です？
Let's say there was a particular problem. Kept taken for the 35 months. One that wasn't exactly favorable for the Sonozaki family. If Oryu shows concern over that particular problem, hearing that somebody who attended the family council would be helpful. As a result, Oryu's wish would be granted. However, neither Oryu or anybody else would know who actually did it. With this kind of clever little ploy, the Sonozaki family was able to manipulate events even though they had their hands laid out on the table.
では親族会議に出席していた誰かが犯人ということですか？
あるいはそもそも犯人なんかいない可能性だってあるよな。俺自身、その万座の一同の中に誘拐犯がいるって確信を持ってるわけじゃない。ただ 自分の意見を述べただけさ。
It was an odd and unpleasantly secretive way of doing things. Were they involved or weren't they? I couldn't see beyond the veil. This much, however, I could say with certainty. This kidnapping was an ironclad secret. No matter how high a position someone was in, even they wouldn't know about it. If there was somebody who would know about it, they would be connected to public safety. In other words, one of us. The only other options were people connected to the case itself. Including the minister, there would be people affected by the incident, or the people that committed it. In any case, there was no way an old household in a place removed from Tokyo by over 6 hours of highway travel should know about it. Them knowing it all was already strange. My suspicions began to accumulate, like falling snow.
孫の誘拐についてお涼が述べたのはここまでだ。あんたの知りたかったことが含まれてりゃいいんだがな。あとは兄ちゃんの仕事だな。何のお仕事やってるか知らんけど、園崎家を相手にするなら相当の覚悟でやっとけよ。大石の旦那は怖いもの知らずだけどな。あれでも2、3回は襲われてる。
Oh, he's been attacked?
最近は来てないけど、一時はオフの時も防塵ベストを着込んでたんだよな。
Oh shit.
ええ、忠告ありがとうございます。気をつ
標準語が流暢だよな。兄さんは東京とかの人？
え？それが何か？
Investigators were always close to danger. It was best not to divulge any information.
兄さんのお仕事だけどさ、ひょっとして警視庁の公安部の人ってことある？
I couldn't remain silent here. It would be the same thing as admitting it.
まさか。
こっから旦那からもらった金の範囲には入らないんだが。
He's gonna ask for more.
兄さんとは今日宅を囲んだ仲間だからな。サービスってことで話してやるよ。
Freebie?
お寮から誘拐の話が出た後、もう一つ話題が出たんだ。
A topic that Oryu brought up? And right before he told me this, Sato-san asked if I was from the Metropolitan Public Safety Division. In other words, what those two things meant caused a chill to run up my spine.
そんででな。大臣の孫さらったのは調べるために東京からはるばる公安の捜査官が派遣されてくるっちゅう話だ。
公安の捜査官？
大臣の孫の誘拐な。警視庁の公安部が独自で調べとるっちゅう話だ。はっ、大行なこったの。ん？どうした？
Rika, who had been drawing the entire time and was completely uninterested in the conversation up until now, looked at Oryu with an uninterested face as soon as the topic of public safety came up. Oh god.
警視庁が来たのですか？
リカちゃまは警視庁も知ってなさるんかい。偉いの。
誰が来たのですか？
公安のどんなやつが来よったんか。誰ぞわかるやつはおらんかいな。
Leon's father raised his hand slightly.
新米の若造が一人と聞き及んでおります。
Why does everybody call Akasaka such like sexual fucking things? A nice young piece of fresh meat like
新米？ほかほかなのですか？
What the fuck, Rika? Don't eat him.
ええ、はい。新米とか。
Leon's father smiled wryly as he answered Rika's
ほ
question.
かほかのふかふか？
ええ。
ほかほかのふかふか？
Rika smiled with interest. Why did Rika suddenly act interested only when it came to this topic? That was a question that apparently nobody had to
リ
answer
カちゃ
to.
まはその男のことを何か知っているのかな？
知んないのですよ。
Oh, she's keeping the secret. After a rather flat reply, Rika buried herself underneath Oryu's futon again. But when she buried herself there, Rika no longer started drawing again. Instead, she was making an expression like she was in deep
どうしま
contemplation.
すか？お母さん。
Mion's father posed a question. He had the type of uncouth expression on his face, indicating that given the order, he could snuff the problem out at any time.
はるばるひなみざまで来よった。しばらくはのんびりさせてやるのもよかろう。
泳がせろということでしょうか。
Mion's father asked in response. Oryu smiled thinly as she responded.
ほっといたれな。が、あんまりおいたが過ぎるようやった。そん時は遠慮せんとな。なめられるのはすっきゃせんね
え。なんて話があったそうだ。まさかあんたその警視庁の新米じゃないよな。
Aware.
まさか。
Aware. This family council took place last night. In other words, yesterday. Then today, when I was dressed up as a tourist headed towards Hinamizawa, my cover was already blown. Oh, so that was before Rika had met him. And that's why Ooh. So Rika tried to warn him. So if anything, Rika's on our side right now. Because she's trying to help him. Person at the family council who expressed interest in the man being dispatched from the Metropolitan Police, Rika Furude. And then the person who was waiting for me the whole time in the bus shelter, Rika Furude. It was an unthinkable image. No, it was a delusion. When we met at the bus shelter, did Rika-chan already know my true identity? Did she know that I was Akasaka, dispatched from the Metropolitan Police Department and come to meet me? Then, including Mayor Kimiyoshi, every villager that I met, everybody knew, but I just pretended not to? Because Oreo had given instructions not to interfere? Think about it logically, it didn't seem possible. I met quite a number of people. If there's people that are good at acting, then there's people who are bad at hiding things. If there was that many people, then there should have been somebody among them who knew I was from public safety and couldn't hide their hostility. However, I didn't feel any presence like that. But then even still, why did Oryu tell them to leave me alone? Was it because if they were careless about it, it would only raise more suspicion? Or was it because they believed a rookie like me wouldn't be able to find anything? Akasaka is a coward. I recalled that strange voice which could only make me believe that Rika-chan had been possessed. That unknown entity, no matter how you looked at it, knew my true identity from the get-go. And then, how did it warn me again? That's right, it warned me to hurry up and go back to Tokyo. Instead of the realistic worry that the Onigafuchi Guardians had discovered my identity, the absurd worry about brought on by the unknown girl stuck with me more. What exactly was that girl? What was that thing I would eventually regret? That mysterious girl, Rika Furude. Let's stop this. Everything I was thinking of right now was merely conjecture. Tomorrow, first thing in the morning, I'll report everything I heard right now to HQ and await further orders. There was no mistaking that the possibility the Onigafuchi Guardians were related to this case was there, and that the fact that my cover was blown meant I was in a precarious position. But as everybody at HQ was already extremely busy, they might not be able to spare the support.
もういいかい？よければ好きなところまで送るよ。
あ、ではお会いした元の駅までお願いします。
A rural road where even a streetlight was rare. I couldn't see anything. I wasn't aware of anything but the asphalt that was lit up by the headlights. Outside of that light, was it simply darkness, or was there something lurking there, waiting to strike? I had to think I drew the short straw here. I wanted to go back to Tokyo. For some reason, the voice of the girl warning me to go back to Tokyo still lingered in my head. Damn. The glint in the demon's eye. What's in the box? Do you believe that there are choices in life? There are many people who lament the following. If there only existed points in life where there were clear choices to make, we would be able to scrutinize those carefully and make decisions that would lead us to a better future. Every time I hear people lament as such, I cast it off as a rather trivial worry. Even if you were given a clear choice, it wouldn't be meaningful at all, and there wouldn't be any such path to a better future. Is this hard to understand? Then let's pretend that in front of you there are two strange boxes. In other words, you have two clear choices. Do you open the red box or the blue box? A lot of things would be uncertain even with that choice, wouldn't they? If you don't have the option of opening neither, then your choice boils down to the natural impulse of opening the box that holds a better result for you. Then after examining the shape and features of each, pondering a great many things, you have to pick either the red or the blue. If this was you, which box would you open, red or blue? If you were to go by the traditional meanings, then red would be dangerous, threatening color. However, that doesn't automatically mean that it would be calm and relaxing inside the blue box either. In fact, it might be that the colors are a trap, makes you wary of the red box and have you open the blue. A trap? Could it be the contents of the box aren't a reward but rather a penalty? See, now you're at a loss. You're so conflicted over the choice between red and blue that you've started wishing there was an option to open neither and just leave. But there isn't. You have to open either the red box or the blue box. Oh, I forgot to say this, but if you choose one box, the other will disappear. So you'll never know the contents of the box you don't open. I'll just put that rule at the end there for you. Now, why don't you choose? The red box or the blue box? It's alright, you won't lose anything by picking either one. Come on now. Wait, what? Oh, shit. Set up a poll? No, I'm not setting up a poll. How do I know? Oh my god. Bro, because, like, I'm wondering, yeah, choices do matter here. So, like, how do I know? I mean, do I just, like, actually make a quick save here? Or not a quick save, but, like, try to make an actual save? I can't save. I can't save during a tip. I'm feeling like it doesn't fucking matter either one. Have you thought about it? In the end, you chose this color, didn't you? As soon as you chose, the other box disappeared. So you can give up on the contents of that one, okay? That's the rule. Now open up the box you chose. Inside the box there was a piece of caramel. I know you're a little disappointed, but that's only natural. No matter how you look at it, it looks like you drew the dud. The correct box might have had a bar of chocolate in it, for all you know. No, in fact, something incredible like a pair of tickets to Hawaii might have been there. But even if you wanted to verify that the other box has already disappeared, there's no way you can check now. But if you think about it from an optimistic point of view, just maybe the other box was empty and this box was the winner. And being satisfied, or perhaps not, with such a cheap prize, you pop it into your mouth and start chewing it happily. So what do you think in the end? If you were given a second chance, would you try to open the other box? But unfortunately, the chance to choose between the red or blue box has come and gone, never to be seen again. The chance to change your selection will never come. Don't your parents often say every choice you make in life only happens once, so choose carefully? Choices aren't that great after all. Aren't you a little disillusioned now? Can't I just play the tip again and choose blue? Alright, what's in the blue box? We thought about it in the end? A stick of chewing gum? The fuck, man? Because instead of this boring game of boxes, you could be looking at the quickly changing evening summer sky, listening for the distant sound of thunder, and pondering if it's going to rain or not. That would be much more fun. Yeah, whatever.
はい。それで、お通夜が明日の午後6時からになりまして、告別式があさってのお昼。会場は沖宮セレモニーホールになります。
すっか。池澤助役のお孫さんの葬式じゃ、何にも挨拶なしってわけにもいかんね。みよ、代わりに出てえな。
うん、了解。喪服で行く？香典はいくらくらい？
学校の服でえんね。前のボタンちゃんと留めてくんねよ。香典は5万。10万包んだれな。世話になったかんな。
Young quietly whistled in awe at the exorbitant amount of money her grandmother was offering.
池澤さんはな、沖宮の事務所長だった頃からしっかりした人だったんで。でもな、池澤さんはわしがお茶を勧めるといっつも上がってくれて、ちゃんと話を聞いてくれた。人の話を最後まで聞く、本当に鏡みたいな人だったんね。
The two guests made a show of nodding, making it clear they were paying attention as Oryu reminisced. The sight of them trying not to get on Oryu's bad side was humorous enough to elicit laughter from Mion occasionally.
で、池澤助役のお孫さんはいくつで亡くなったんね。
11歳だそうで。
Oryu closed her eyes and shook her head lightly, lamenting the loss of such a young life.
確か孫は一人だ言うてんな。親より先に死ぬほどの親不孝はあるめな。
ばっちゃんも他人には優しいね。私やシオンが死んだら同じように悲しんでくれる？
アホん抜かすんでね。演技でもねすったなんとしゃらあったく。
Having got the reaction she expected, Mion cackled. The two guests, unsure if they were supposed to laugh along, instead forced awkward smiles.
それでは本日は失礼いたします。では明日の夕方5時にお迎えに参りますんで、よろしくお願いいたします。ではごめんくださいませ。
After bowing their heads repeatedly, the guests left by the front door. Mion saw them off, waving her little hand goodbye.
帰ったよ。お役人もばっちゃのご機嫌伺いに大変だね。不法なんか電話でいいと思うのにね。
Well, it's true that Oryu Sonozaki was a central person for both her relatives and the residents of Hinumazawa village as a whole. As a voting bloc, they numbered in the several thousand. It wasn't hard to imagine the mayor would try to pander to her. Unlike Mion, however, Oryu was looking up longingly at the sky from the veranda.
どうしたの？猛録した？
誰のお孫さんであろうと、 気の毒だのう思ったんよ。
Saying that, she let out a deep sigh. Mion was let down, as normally her grandmother would have scolded her for her attitude.
ミオ、これ例の大臣の孫、さらわれてからどのくらいになる？
4日かな。
Oryu let out another deep sigh.
旧敵の孫とはいえ気の毒だな。
そう。
十分気はせいたんろ。そろそろ終わりにしちゃれな。
Ooh, Mion doesn't think so. I think Mion's like thinks her grandmother's being weak. And then, as if to ascertain Oryu's will, looked into her eyes. Oryu, expressing her intention with only those eyes, looked back into
お
Mion's.
茶が欲しんで頼んでな。さっきのチョコレートも食べといね。
Mion gave a small nod, then turned around.
シミコさん、いますか？ばっちゃんに紅茶入れてあげてください。
From far away, a voice responded in the affirmative. Mion, after confirming she'd been heard, picked up the phone and began dialing.
あ、もしもし？ミオンだけど。うちのお父さん、います？
The grandson didn't die, right? If I recall, the grandson was handed back, right? Okay, well, chat. I think yesterday you stopped 40 minutes on Uma for a Rudolph run. Then you mauled on Genshin for 3 hours to scam both promised chapters of Higu. Now you're only doing one. Well, listen, we had to do an HSR. We had to do a HSR story. It is what it is. Okay, chat. Look, Dodi wants to play and hang out with me. Okay, it is what it is. You said longer stream, motherfucker. We're 7 hours in. Okay. Finish this stream off with a We will pick back up tomorrow, boys. Okay. Look at him. Look at him, Chad. He wants to play. One more raise? No. Alright. We'll pick it up tomorrow. Very nice. I think we're probably getting to the end of this this entire chapter soon. But yes, sir. One more and this chapter is done. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're probably finishing up with this chapter soon. I think the next chapter is probably going to be a longer one, so we'll finish it tomorrow. And chapter 5 right after that. Yes, sir. Ooh, now the question is, do I start chapter 5 before Anime Expo? Because I think Anime Expo is going to stall it a little bit. Yeah? Okay, I mean, maybe we will. Maybe we will start chapter 5 before AX. But alright, chat. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Oh, look at the little ducky. It's falling asleep. Oh. Good night, everybody on YouTube as well. Thank you guys for hanging out. Good night. Twitch, YouTube chat, both of you guys. Thank you, everybody. All 72 YouTube frogs that stuck around. Appreciate you guys as always. And let's see here. I'll send y'all over to Zyox. I believe he's coming to AX, so I'll meet up with him there. Good night, everybody. Bye-bye. Thank you guys for hanging out. Good night. Tomorrow we finish chapter 4. Maybe we even start chapter 5 if it's not that long. Who knows? Anyways, good night. Bye-bye.